Hi, my name is Harley C. My project is on digital image processing. Today we're going to be giving insight on digital image processing. Image processing, we need to learn this because it's the process in which the signal is converted from analog to computer signal. This process is very lengthy and has a lot of steps. I'm going to do my best to sum it up as much as I can while still giving as much detail as I can. I'm going to be summing up both the process in CR and in DR, radiography. So to begin, I'd like to mention, when you speak about digital, we talk about computers. Although we think we know about computers in our everyday lives, they do a lot more than just what we do at home on our desktops. Pause it. Computers are used to process real objects and convert them into a numerical value. This numerical value, or also known as a binary code, is just a combination of ones and zeros. That's how we define digital radiography. At the end, the numerical value is then converted to something close to the real thing, almost like a copy, a close copy. In the case of radiology, what we do is that we take the image and we convert it as close as we can. This image we're converting is obviously of the body part. And so that's basically just the whole purpose of computing this signal, and why we need it is a copy of the original signal. So a copy of the hand on your x-ray. Digital imaging works on a set of principles. One of them is the technical factors that we use has an effect on the signal, as well as the tissues or composition of the tissues we're radiographing, and the way the computer, the electronic signal of the computer is processed. All three have an effect on our digital signal. In computed radiography, the image plate has two ways in which the signal can be converted and processed. When we speak about image acquisition, we're talking about the CR components and how they require the signal of the X-ray photons. Okay, so as I said, we're referring to CR components and how they acquire the signal through X-ray photons through barium, fluoride, europium crystals with europium activator. In total, there are 4 steps in which the signal is processed. They acquire the signal by starting with the exposure from the tube, the stimulable part, the readout of the signal, and finally the erase of the signal. These are the very important 4 key parts. So at this point, the image plate in computed radiography requires the signal and then converts it once the signal is received into light photons, which then the case occurs that the electrons become trapped in the europium hole and the cassette is then inserted into the scanner. This is where it's read by the red laser beam light, and this is where image readout begins. During image readout, the helium laser converts the signal into a blue-violet or blue-purple light. From this stage now, it's going to head to the photomultiplier. The photomultiplier gets the new signal and converts it into electrical signal, which is still the representation of the same analog signal. Once the photomultiplier electrifies the signal, it's then sent to the ADC, or the analog digital converter. So the analog digital converter, it's the signal needs to be sent there because this is where it's finally transmitted into digital signal. After it's transmitted into digital signal, there are still 3 more steps. The first step is scanning. The second step is sampling, and the third step is quantization. Scanning the plate is the process in which the plate moves into the scanner. That first step is called slow scan. The second step is fast scan. Fast scan is where the laser beam actually reads out the cassette. And then it goes to the photomultiplier. The photomultiplier, then the ADC. In this case is where we begin to sample the frequency. This is where the Nyquist theorem comes in. The Nyquist theorem states that to adequately sample a frequency, you have to sample it at twice the highest rate of the highest frequency accounted for. So that's the Nyquist theorem and what it means. So when you say sample the highest rate, if you have a rate, if you have an average maybe of 300 and 200 is your low, but your maximum peak is 500, you're going to sample at 1,000 energy. So as I said, if you would go at the example at a rate of 1,000, it's going to give you a close frequency to match the original, so a close copy. On the contrary though, if you don't do that and you're undersampling now, you're going to be aliasing. This is actually one of the most common radiographic artifacts on an image, and it's considered an artifact. And that's just, like I said, just the term needs to be undersampling. So once your signal is properly sampled, then you're going to move on to the final step, which is quantization. This is where the ones and zeros that you receive after you've digitized and everything has come through is not going to be converted into the grayscale. So that's just the final step. The grayscale is now what we see as our image, and that's how it comes up on the monitor. So that's that representation. Now, when we talk about DR technology or flat panel detectors, we're talking about, we have two separate systems. We have indirect and direct. I'm going to begin to explain the indirect process first. And indirect just means that we're going to include amorphous silicone in this system, and we acquire the image first by receiving the photons on the image plate, and the photons being converted into light photons. Then the light photons are going to be converted into electrical signal, and then from the electrical signal it's going to be transferred into the TFT and the DEL, and from the DEL it's going to go back to the ADC once again, where the signal is then going to be sampled. And sampling is just the same concept I told you about, doubling to make sure you get close to the same frequency to get a good copy. The indirect flat panel detectors and X-ray photons are immediately converted into, the direct flat panel detectors are immediately converted into the electrical signal through amorphous selenium, and then to the TFT, and then to the DEL. Okay, in conclusion, I've discussed to you image processing in both systems, CR and DR. And just to review really quickly, in CR is the one where we use the image plate, and the information is first stored in the barium fluoride europium's hole until it's extracted then by the red laser beam. When during the extraction, the blue-violet light is emitted from the europium hole as the electrons go back to their state, their natural state. I've also discussed to you how in DR there's indirect and direct. In indirect we use amorphous silicone, and this is where the light is then converted into the electrons, and then it goes to the TFT and DEL, and then finally the ADC part of conversion. And for the for the directs for DR, we use amorphous selenium, where the X-ray photons obviously go directly into where the electrical signal. So the X-ray photons go directly to electrical signal, and then the TFT and DEL, and finally then the ADC. We even mentioned a little bit about after how the Nyquist theorem comes into play, and how we should be sampling the signal correctly at twice the highest frequency, and when we don't sample that high, how we can cause an aliasing effect and artifact on our image. And we also mentioned as well how quantization happens as the final step and converts the final signal into the grayscale, which we then see on our monitor. So I hope you enjoyed my presentation on image processing. Thank you.